Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Unveiling Islam. I'm David Wood here with Brother Rachid. And Brother Rachid, you have, of course, left Islam, but there's one thing you cannot deny.
Okay.
And that is Islam's amazing impact on women. The Quran gives women unprecedented rights. And I've heard that Muhammad was practically the greatest feminist who ever lived.
Yeah.
And so obviously, if we look at the Quran, we're going to find out that the status of women was massively elevated thanks to this book. Is that right?
It's not right.
Not? Oh, my goodness. But I hear it all the time.
Yes, and they say also, like, it has a chapter about women.
It's got a chapter about women?
It has Mary there.
It's got an entire chapter. It actually names one woman in the entire Quran.
And that's a problem, actually. Why only one woman?
That is true.
Because when it talks about, there's no woman mentioned except Mary. Mary was already famous in the whole world back then. Name any woman. He named many men. He named Abu Lahab, he named Zayd, he named Luqman, he named Qarun, he named all these guys, but not a single woman. And he talks about the wife of Pharaoh, the wife of Al-Aziz, the wife of Lot, the wife of Noah, the wife of, until today, in the Arab world, we don't talk about our wives' names. We just say, my home. And they say about women, Ahmed, Muhammad, Mustafa, the mother of. Always we define her by a male. That's because of this culture. And when you think about it, why? Because it's not wholly to the level that we will put a name of a woman in the Quran.
But at the very least, the Quran is going to be filled with amazing teachings that elevate the status of women, right?
No. Actually, the chapter we mentioned, the Nisa, women, it's the most chapter that is against women in the Quran.
So the one about women is the worst one for women. Yes, that's what you're saying?
And when Muslims tell me this, they say actually the Quran honored women because it consecrated a whole chapter for women. I say that's not the reason, actually. Just whatever chapter discusses a topic, they name it after that topic. For example, the cow. So are we going to tell Hindus that Hindus, we honor the cow for you?
I bet there are Muslims in India who use that
Probably
argument.
use that. And we have actually a chapter about the elephant and a chapter about ants.
So it's honoring
chapter about spider. Is it honoring Spider-Man? So all these things are just because the topic there is about that subject. That's the only reason.
So what do we find out about women in the chapter about women?
We have many verses. Which one you want to start with? Men are in charge of women, 434. And I have to make a warning here. What I read in Arabic is not what I read in English. They are trying to modify the translation. Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them. Then if they persist, forsake them in bed. Then finally strike them, and they put lightly. In the Arabic version, there is no lightly, there is no gently, there is nothing, just strike them.
So they're adding words, they're adding lightly.
Yes.
To
fool you guys.
For people who are reading the translation.
Yes. It's like, because it's so embarrassing in front of English speakers that they had to add something to make it acceptable somehow. But anyway, nobody will accept you beat a woman lightly or not. You will go to jail for that. So that means the Quran is just encouraging men to be women. And that's not accepted.
And so it gives these, if you have a wife who's, it's interesting because some of them will say you fear rebellion, like you simply fear that she might.
I mean, I am the judge here.
Yeah.
It's like male have to make the judgment. I can wake up in a bad mood in the morning. I will be like, come here. I'm fearing arrogance from you. Here you go. Boom.
And Muhammad said in the hadith, a man will not be asked why he beat his wife. And why? Because it's entirely up to you whether you feel like your wife is going to rebel or be arrogant or something like this. But it gives these possible solutions. You can warn them. You can banish them to a separate bed, so you separate from them in bed, so you stay over there, don't talk to me. And then, if you want, you can beat them into submission. And we even see in the hadith, there's a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari about a man who beat his wife until her skin turned green.
Yes.
And then Muhammad condemns the woman for being a bad wife, making her husband do that to her.
Yep. So beating women in the Islamic world now, it's because the Quran allows men to do that. We have many cases. Statistics are really mind-blowing when you see how many male beat their wives.
And every study I've seen from various organizations that study abuse of women around the world, or they study the gender gap, in other words, differences in rights and privileges and opportunities between men and women. And it'll always be like 11 out of 12 or 17 out of 18 of the worst countries in the world are always Muslim countries.
Yes.
Because of things like this.
I mean, compare this with Jesus. He had disciples who are women. Mm-hmm. He had actually he honored women sometimes more than religious people, especially the lady that came and started washing his feet and pouring tears and washing his feet. Many women, Magdalene, Mary the Magdalene, and that's why Christianity is different than Islam. Muhammad wasn't like that. And many women are mentioned in the gospel, not in like the Quran, none. Let's move to another one in the same surah. Would you read the 4:3?
Surah 4, verse 3?
Yes. Easy, just 4 and 3.
Yeah, that's the, you can marry multiple wives, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Surah 4, verse 3. And I'm sure we're going to want to go to make sure we get to 4:24. But Surah 4.
If it's not ready, I can read it.
I've got it. Surah 4, verse 3. If you fear that you shall be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only one, or a captive that your right hands possess. That will be more suitable to prevent you from doing injustice.
I have a problem, a big problem with this. I mean, a man like me should not have left Islam because it gives us more privilege than...
Yeah, are you crazy?
I know. But... I mean, it's a problem because when you think of your mom, when you think of your daughter, when you think of your sister, it will be a problem, a big problem. Mm-hmm. You can marry 2, 3, or 4. It depends on what you want. It's not if it's fair to others. It's just if you want that as a male. And Muhammad didn't even respect that. This rule he made is from, he says from God. He had more. Some sources say 13, 11, 9, and you can put it up to 50, some sources, 50 some. Let's say he just had 11. Mm-hmm. This is talking about 4. You had 7 more.
Yeah, well, he's the prophet, so he gets special moral privileges. Isn't that interesting? In the Bible, like, people are held to a higher standard, like the apostles and so on, so they're held to a higher standard. Yeah. In Islam, it's just you get whatever Muhammad wants, he gets.
We had a joke as Muslims. I heard it as a Muslim. They say, you know what's the punishment of a Muslim when he marries 4 wives? You don't know.
No.
4 mother-in-laws.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not against mother-in-laws. I'm just saying what we used to say in the Islamic world. Marrying 4 wives creates a lot of problems in the Muslim world until today. Mm-hmm. until today. My dad didn't marry 2 or 3 or 4. He had 1 wife, and many of my uncles and my people I know, they had more than 1 wife. And I have seen so many problems because of that. There's no fairness. There is nothing about fairness among them.
One more quick one before we have to close out. Surah 4:24 also prohibited are women already married except those whom your right hands possess. What's this about? Surah 4:24.
Her right hand possessed as slave girls.
Yeah.
You can have slave girls as many as you want, even 1,000, even 2,000, even 3,000. All the caliphs through history, they had hundreds of slave girls, and that's allowed by the Quran. And if it was not up to the Western countries, we could have been, until today, in Muslim countries, we have slave girls. Actually, it's the West who forced Muslim countries to stop that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just as we're closing out here, the historical background of this verse is especially horrifying. This also prohibited are women already married. So it goes on to say you can have your slave girls, but it says prohibited are women already married except those whom your right hands possess. This is talking about women you've captured in battle who are still married. And the historical background was that in this battle they conquered and they captured the men and the women. And Muhammad's followers were worried, hey, are we allowed to have sex with our captives? We know, according to the Quran, we're allowed to have sex with our captives. But these women are married. We caught their husbands too. What are we supposed to do? And that's when Allah reveals, yes, married women are prohibited, except those your right hands possess.
I'll feel bad if we end without mentioning 2 things about women in the Quran. Would we allow some, just a little bit extra time?
Sure.
The one about the share of inheritance. Allah commands you regarding your children, the share of the male will be twice that of the female. So if a Muslim dies, his kids, the male gets twice as the female. Mm-hmm. And that was a habit in the Arabic Peninsula before Muhammad, so he just integrated it into the Quran. Another one is witnesses. Surah 2:82. Call upon 2 of your men to witness. If 2 men cannot be found, then 1 man and 2 women of your choice will witness. So a female is half of a male when it comes to witness. You need 2 men or a male with 2 females. And that tells me how Islam looks at women. And when I ask clerics, why is that? They say because their brain is half or less than a male.
That's basically Muhammad's response when it was brought up to him that the testimony of woman is half as valuable as a man's. He said it's because of the deficiency of a woman's mind.
Where in Christianity, Mary was the first witness about the resurrection. Mm-hmm. The biggest event in Christianity, and that tells you a lot about the 2 religions.
Mm-hmm. And so we putting all this together, and there's much more in the Quran and significantly more in the Hadith as well. In the Hadith, I mentioned about a woman being beaten till her skin turns green. Aisha, who's called the mother of the faithful in Islam, Aisha said she has not seen any woman being treated worse than Muslim women. So this was Aisha, the mother of the faithful, saying Muslim women were treated worse than pagan women. And she saw it from Muhammad herself.